Sanhedrin Daf, 11 lines down. Malved bidi beat, someone lending on interest. The amount of violence refers to the bidi beat pasul, but only someone who borrows an interest is pasul for testimony. But on time, once our Mishnah said Malved bidi beat, one who lends, not just borrowing. The Gemara says Milveh haba'ah bidi beat is referring to loans with interest. Borrower and lender are pasul from testifying. Bar Benitos Asidu Betre Saade, two witnesses testified against Bar Benitos. Hadamar Kamad Yosef Beribita. One witness said that he lent money and interest in front of me. The Hadamar Yosef Beribita. One witness said he lent in front of me in interest. Pasir of Bar Benitos, because these two witnesses they made him pasul from testifying. V'aravahu damar love beribit pasul. The Rav said that one who borrows money with interest is pasul and edut. V'have le rasha. The second witness who said that he's the one who borrowed the money with interest. That was the case. The second one says, I borrowed money from him with interest, testifying that the guy lent him money and interest. But a Rasha cannot be a witness. He just said that he's a Rasha because he borrowed money. So how can he testify? Gemara says, Rabbi goes according to his own reasoning. Person testifying against himself is considered a relative. He can't testify against himself, can't convict himself that he's a Rasha. And therefore, we do like Pagin and Dibor, we mentioned this previously. We take half of what he said, and therefore we take the half of him saying the guy lent money and interest, and we don't believe in the part that it was he who borrowed, and that's how they were able to make him pasul. Okay. I forgot to tell them today that it was a butcher who ended up, they found out that he was giving not kosher meat, taref meat instead of kosher meat. Paser Nachman Ba'avre, Nachman disqualified him from testifying and also said he can't be a butcher anymore. Rabbi Mazieh v'Turfre, the butcher went and grew his hair and fingernails. The son of Teshuvah. Sabar Rahman said maybe we should make him back into the community. We should allow him back. Amar Rabbi said 1 second. Maybe he's just faking it and he's trying to trick us that he's being sincere. Maybe he's not sincere. Amar said, "How are you supposed to prove himself?" He said, a person who's suspected of dealing with taref animals, he has to move to a new town and no one recognizes him. He should go and when he has an opportunity to be honest and return a very expensive item to someone, that's what he should do. A lost object, he finds something, he should return it. That shows that he's honest. In another instance, or if he has an own animal that is taref and he throws it out without trying to steal, that shows that he's innocent because he's discarding his own taref products. Okay. We mentioned pigeons in the Mishnah. What are these people doing with pigeons that are pasul from Edut? We said, I explained it in the Mishnah as well, that Bavel, they explained it as a person who races pigeons, gambling via racing. Rabbi Hama bar Oshe Amar, he says, Ara means the guy who's using pigeons as decoys. People used to have like bird houses that wild birds would come in that didn't belong to anybody. So what people used to do is they would take a pigeon, hold it near these bird houses, and they would let it coo, and it would get these other birds to come out, and then he would trap them. So he would. That's how they would take birds from people's bird houses, even though it didn't belong to them. We don't like it. Where it says, "Mandamar so according to the opinion, said that it was pigeon racing. Why didn't he say that it was a? Why didn't he say that the Mishnah is referring to a decoy? Why is that not making your pasul? The Gemara says, because he's not officially stealing. He's taking birds that don't belong to the guy because they're just wild animals, wild birds. They don't belong to them. They're flying in. It's the reason why we don't want you to do that. It's not because of theft per se, but because of keeping peace between people. Like, what are you doing? Why are you taking these birds from my birdhouse? But it's not theft. That's why you're not pasul vedut. Okay, mandamar ara. My time according to opinion hold that it is because of these decoy birds. Why does he not say that it's referring to pigeon racing? Where it says, because he says that what are you talking about? That's exactly the same thing as gambling with dice. What's the difference? Pigeon racing and gambling. Tomorrow says no. Other women say not necessarily. The Mishnah teaches two different types of people. A person who refers on his own skill regarding dice, and a person who relies on the skill of his pigeon. In both cases. If you only mention the case of the guy who's relying on his own skill, for example, the dice, because in the case of the dice, it's like considered a smachta. He's not having in mind to be makneh like we had earlier. Person's gambling, he thinks he's going to win. and therefore, uh, maybe that's why in that case it should be pasul. Damar, because that guy is going to say, "Kum li ben avshay v'yadan atfeh." I know what I'm doing. I'm not going to lose, and and I know how to play better than the other guy. I was said that but regarding the pigeon, well, maybe he's not has no reason to think that he's automatically going to win, and therefore it's not considered a smachta, and therefore it would be kasher. But therefore, Mishnah says no, even pigeon racing is asur. If you only mention the case of the bird, for example, maybe the pigeon racing does have a skill because you have to know how to scare your bird to race faster, and therefore he's like, yeah, I'm good at scaring the bird with these things that make a lot of noise. But regarding the person who's regarding his own dice, regarding his dice, maybe he's not confident, and therefore it won't be considered a smachta. Therefore, tzricha need Mishnah to teach you both cases. Matthew, I have a question. I'm a someone playing with dice, gambling. It's the first people who are playing with these wooden cubes, basically dice. Even not necessarily dice per se, but even if you're using anything to gamble, whether it's nutshells or pomegranate peels, they might have done what's considered teshuvah. Et piece when they do teshuvah and they break their dice. They won't even want to play dice even for free without betting. The person who's interest, whether lender or borrower, they must have then what's considered teshuvah for a person dying interest. When they tear up their loan documents and they do teshuvah. I feel that teshuvah is so complete they won't even lend to interest to a goy, which is mutar. Person who's racing pigeons, Yonim refers to not racing pigeons, but causing pigeons to fight each other. Michael Vick style. Not only birds, but even any type of animal or wild animal or bird. They break the sticks that make the noise to scare the animals, and that's considered they do full teshuvah. Now the Gemara says that such teshuvah they won't even do it in the wild with wild animals that these fights that don't have anybody who owns them. The Gemara says, so people used to deal with Shivi'it merchandise. And these people who deal with Shivi'it fruits, they sell it, they're not supposed to sell it, the Shemitah stuff. The next Shemitah that will arrive, they won't touch their fields fruits. Additionally, he said, not only do they have to do teshuvah, but they also have to give money. What does that mean? Not only does he have to leave it for people, he has to actively give the fruits of his shemitah to the poor people. Different than letting them just come to him. He has to actively give it out. Now, in any event, we see that the Braita mentioned that you're allowed to do pigeon racing, even with animals. According to me, hold that when we were talking about pigeons means racing, that can be something done with a bird, with an animal. Decoy, you translated that as decoying the bird from one bird to the next. But if that's the case, why would this Braita mention it as part of the Isurim with an animal? Animals you can't lure out with another animal. It says, and yes, it actually can be done bishor habar with a wild ox. That's according to the opinion that the wild ox is considered a domesticated animal. The Tanakh says short habar min the wild ox considered domesticated. Rabbi Yosef ben Hayat and holds wild animals. So according to the Tanakh that holds that it's a domesticated animal, you're able to use an ox to draw out another ox, and that would be the similar situation as a decoy. Okay. Tanakh says Hachamim added to the list. Who are those pasul in the Mishnah as well? Additionally, robbers and hamsanim. A person doing Hamas is a person who force sales. I go over to the guy, I take his item, and I say, here's $100. Thank you for your business. And who says he wanted to sell it? Okay, because on the right to this, the Gemara says, one second, a thief, you need a thief to be pasul. The Torah says he's pasul. The Gemara says, not necessarily. Even a person who is taking a lost object by a guy who is deaf, mute, or not mentally all there, or a minor. Even that's considered disqualification. Initially, we thought that it's not a common thing to take something from them, and therefore you don't need a gzira. or maybe not disqualified because the disqualification, the isur to take something from them is more out of keeping the peace between people. Like, why would it's not? Don't be kind to these people. Don't take their stuff. Versus Kevin However, once Hachamim said, you know what, they're taking money that don't belong to them. Therefore, people who don't who take their stuff will be disqualified. Hacham said, even mentioned Hamas. Initially, they said, you know what, they're giving money, and therefore, it's not really a full sin. They're at least they're paying for it. Where it says, however, once they saw that these people would take the item first and then drop the money later on, that is more of a sin because they didn't pay for it first. Even though no one's saying they're doing a good thing, but it's even worse the way they were handling the situation. Tana, practice says, they added to the list people who are pasul for edu testimony, shepherds, tax collectors, and custom collectors. Ro'im regarding shepherds, maybe they said that initially the reason why the shepherds should be pasul because only maybe they should not be pasul because maybe they only let their animals graze in other people's fields only occasionally, or maybe not on purpose. Once Chaim saw that they were on purpose with intention, leading the animals to eat other people's property, they said, okay, shepherders are pasul. Tax collectors, custom collectors, initially they thought, you know what, they're not pasul because they're only taking what they should get. Once Hachamim saw that they're taking more than what they need, they said they're pasul. When we said a shepherd, it means either have a shepherd dealing with small animals or big animals. We have really held that. A shepherd of small animals in Eretz Yisrael are pasul. After Eretz Yisrael, they're kasher. A shepherd of large animals, even in Eretz Yisrael, are kasher. So we see that Rafa does not say they're pasul across the board. Versus no, that's talking about a person who's raising the animals, which is done in house. Those who are taking the animals out for walks, they are pasul. We see in the Mishnah that says these three shepherds should be believed. I allow three shepherds to be believed as part of the judgment. They are allowed. Now the Gemara says, "My love they do." Sounds like even testimony they're believed. So we see that you're allowed to believe them unless they're not believed unless you specifically allow them to. The Gemara says, "No, Dina." That's not talking about edut. That's not proof because that's not talking about testimony. That's talking about allowing them to be judges. Gemara says, and I can prove to you talking about judges. They said, I'll agree with you that we'll allow these three people, three shepherds. If it's testimony, you don't need three, you only need two. Therefore, that Mishnah must be talking about edut. So what? You're telling me that they're trying to accept them as a bedin? So why specifically they mention shepherds? Any three amei haaretz who don't know halacha, take them. Gemara says no, they want to teach you hidush. Even these three shepherds who have been on the outskirts of the city, who have not been living with society and don't know any halachot at all, any technicalities at all, even they would be eligible if you agree upon it and cannot be retracted. A regular shepherd is pasul, even if you don't know what he did. And a regular tax collector is kasher unless you know that he did not do he did something inappropriate. Rabbi Zera's father was tax collector for 13 years. When the tax supervisor would come to the city, when Rabbi Zera's father, who is the official collector of the city, said, so the rabbis in the street, he would tell them outright, he'd tell them, go and hide. When he saw the regular people in the town, he would tell them, the chief is coming to town. He'll slaughter the children in front of the father, following some of the children. Yani, he's telling them in a euphemism to hide. He couldn't say it outright to them because he didn't trust anybody not to snitch on him. Everybody would hide. When the chief would come, he would tell them, okay, give me a high tax, and he would say, there's nobody in the streets, nobody lives here. Not that many people live here. How can you take such a high tax? That was how he would save the town. When he was dying, the father was dying. Take the 13 coins that I have in a handkerchief in my pocket and give it to so and so, because I collected it and we didn't need it. The story goes as follows: that the governor required X amount of money from the town, let's say $1 million. He collected $950,000. He was supposed to get $50,000 from the last guy. He didn't have time yet. He gave the 950, and then when the guy paid him the last $50,000, that whatever these 13 coins, then the governor said, "I don't need it anymore." So then, as the rabbi was dying, the rabbi's father was dying. He was a tax collector. He said, "You know what? Give these 13 coins back because he never needed it." Amar Rabbi Shimon. But initially, these people who were dealing with Shvi'it produce, they were called the gatherers of Shvit. But when the enemies increased, they called it merchants. Now, my Kamar, what is going on? Initially, they said people who are gathering it are kasher to testify, and only people who are selling it are pasul to testify. What happened was there was a lot of more people increased who would go offer money to the poor, and then the poor people would gather it for them, like trying to loophole the system. Therefore, I said, you know what? People who are gathering and people who are merchants are both pasul. Kashuba bene Rahba. But the sons of Rahba were very upset by this explanation. It's first two rabbis. Hi Mishrabu Hanasim. That's not saying the enemies increased. Mishrabu Hatagarini, brother. The vendors increased. The people who are trying to scam the system. The Gemara says Allah. But really they said that both were postponed by Rasul. Mishrabu Hanasim. And when the enemies grew, as Rabbi Nai once announced, go out and plant on the Shemitah year. Skip that actually. They said, you know what? Those who are gathering are kasher, those who are selling are the ones that are pasul.